Hello, dear DSC candidates. Welcome back to my Grammar for Success channel. I am Koresh Babu, a retired lecturer in English from Hyderabad. In today's video, I am going to teach you a very interesting poem, Telephone Conversation, written by William Soyinka. This poem is very important for your DSC examination. One question may be given from this poem, and therefore I request all of you to pay a very good attention to this poem till the end without skipping it in the middle. I also request all of you to consider subscribing to my channel and also sharing this video with all your near and dear ones. Thank you so much. Now let's get into the video. Okay, Telephone Conversation, written by Wole Soyinka. Before I teach you this very interesting poem, I would like to talk to you a few things about the poet Wole Soyinka. This Wole Soyinka was born on July 13, 1934 in Nigeria. He is a celebrated poet, playwright and essayist, and he is renowned for his outstanding contributions to literature and drama. And he was the first African to be awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1986. And one more important point about this poet is his writings are full of rich language, symbolic depth, and fusion of African theatre with Western literary forms. His writings usually deal with certain themes like oppression, tyranny, human rights, reflecting his deep engagement with political and social issues. His most acclaimed plays include A Dance of the Forest, The Road, Death and the King's Horseman. All his plays explore the clash between the traditional African cultures and modernity, as well as the impacts of colonialism. Apart from being a writer, he is a vocal activist. Activist means a person who fights against the ills of the society or anti-people policies of the government. So such people are called activists. So he is a vocal activist, and he was imprisoned many a time for his outspoken criticism of Nigerian government policies, and he has also been exiled for so many times in his life. Despite all these challenges, he remains as a powerful voice advocating for democracy and human rights. So this is what I can tell you about this great poet. Okay, and now I would like to talk to you a few very important things about the poem. Now let us pay attention to this. Okay, this Telephone Conversation of Wole Soyinka is a very poignant and satirical poem which explores the theme of racism and prejudice. And this poem is structured as a dialogue between the narrator, who is a black man, and the landlady with regard to the issue of renting an apartment. Okay, this poem has been written in free verse. Free verse means, all of you know very well, the verse which doesn't follow either the rhyme scheme or the metrical pattern. And next very important thing about the poem is, the tone of the poem, which is polite and formal at the beginning of the poem, shifts to satirical and mocking, reflecting the narrator's changing emotions as the telephone conversation progresses. On the whole, this poem is a very powerful and memorable one. Okay, so far you have learnt about the poet and the poem, and all these things once again I would like to give you in writing on the slides, so that you can have this video as a record for you. Okay, you can watch it as and when you want to learn this poem. Okay, and that's why I'm going to give you all these points on these slides. Please pay a very good attention to these points once again. Right, Wole Soyinka was born on July 13, 1934 in Nigeria. This point is very important. Keep it in your mind. And coming to the next one, he is a celebrated poet, playwright and essayist. You know, he is not only a poet but also a playwright, because he has written so many plays in his lifetime, and he also wrote a large number of essays, and therefore he is called an essayist. So in this way, this Wole Soyinka is a celebrated or renowned poet, playwright and essayist. So keep this point also in your mind. And next point, he is renowned for his significant contributions. Significant means outstanding contributions to literature and drama. This point is also very important because he has contributed significantly to literature and to drama. He was the first African to be awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1986. This is also a very important point about this Wole Soyinka. And here his works often deal with the themes of oppression. What can you find in his works generally? Generally, you can find in his works oppression. The theme of oppression. Oppression means suppression, oppression of the people and all that. Tyranny is also there. And human rights. So these 1, 2, 3, these are the very important themes which you can find in his writings, and reflecting his deep engagement with political and social issues. So in all these, he has participated, he has engaged himself personally. So he has engaged himself personally in political and social issues. So here this is all about this Wole Soyinka. A few more things are also there. Let us learn those things also that are given on the next slide. Soyinka's writing style is notable for its rich language. You can find in his writings rich language, symbolic depth, fusion of traditional African theatre with Western literary forms. So the fusion, the mixing, the combination of traditional African theatre with Western literary forms you can find in his writings. All these things you can find in his writings. Okay, some of his most acclaimed plays. I'm not talking about poems, but here his most acclaimed plays or dramas include A Dance of the Forests, okay, The Road, and the third one is what? Death and the King's Horseman. So these are the three very important plays. Of course, he has written several plays, and all those plays are very, very popular and all that. But of all those plays, these are the most acclaimed ones. Okay, and what can you find in these plays and all that? Means these plays often explore the clash between what? Between the traditional African cultures and modernity, as well as the impacts of colonialism. So impacts means influences of colonialism. So these things only you can find in his plays. That is there. A few more things are there. Let us look at those things also. Let's go to the next slide. Besides his literary achievements, Soyinka is also a vocal activist. Already I have told you about this activist. Activist is a person who protests against the social evils wherever he comes across. Okay, and also the anti-people activities of the governments. He will also protest those things. So such people are called activists. In our country, India, you can find so many activists. Okay, and they always fight against the anti-people laws and anti-people bills and all that by the government. Directly speaking, they are just fighting against the government which is making what? The anti-people laws and all that. Okay, and here he has been imprisoned for his outspoken criticism of Nigerian government policies. So he has criticized the Nigerian government policies vehemently, openly. Yes, for his outspoken criticism of those policies, what happened now? He has been imprisoned for so many times, and he has also lived in exile. Exile means banishment, desham vidichipodam. So banishment, exile at various points in his lifetime. So this is the greatness of this poet. Okay, right. And one more important point about this great poet is, despite all these challenges, he remains even today a powerful voice advocating for democracy and human rights. So this is a very important point about. So these are the most important points about his life. And even today also, he is alive and he is writing poetry. He is advocating for peace, advocating for democracy, advocating for human rights and all that, okay, in Nigeria, right. And now let's move on to learn about the important points I have taught you about the poem, right. About the poem, what is said about the poem here? Oli Soyinka's The Telephone Conversation is what? A poignant and satirical poem. Poignant means affecting deeply or touching. So this poem is a very touching poem, and it is a deeply affecting poem, you know very well. So if you read the poem, you can understand why I have used this word poignant, okay. And it is also a satirical poem, okay, ironic poem, right, and that explores or expresses themes of racism and prejudice. In this poem, what are you going to find? Racism and also prejudice. Racism means the racial feeling, okay, and prejudice means the wrong opinion about somebody or something. That's called prejudice. So these two things you are going to find in this satirical poem, The Telephone Conversation, right. And here the poem is structured as a dialogue, okay. This poem has been written in the form of a dialogue between an African man and a white lady, you know, between an African man and a white lady, revolving around the issue of renting an apartment. So this point is very important. And you go to the next one. Through the use of dialogue, irony and vivid imagery, he exposes the absurdity of racial discrimination. And in this poem, through the use of dialogue and irony and vivid imagery, the poet condemns the racial discrimination. He says that the racial discrimination is quite absurd, quite meaningless and all that, and underscores the importance of dignity and self-respect. And he emphasizes the importance of dignity, the importance of self-respect of man, but not the color of the skin of the man, okay. The color of the skin of the man is not important, okay. His dignity is important, his self-respect is very important. So instead of giving importance to self-respect and dignity, so some people are giving importance to a color of the skin, okay, and that is called racial discrimination, jati vivakshata. So this point is also okay. And now we go to other important points about the poem. The Telephone Conversation is a free verse poem, okay. You know very well, I have already told you that this Telephone Conversation is a free verse poem, meaning it does not adhere to a regular rhyme or scheme or meter, okay. It neither follows the rhyme scheme nor the metrical pattern. And this poetic form allows Soyinka to create a conversational tone mimicking the natural flow of telephone conversation. If the natural flow of telephone conversation is to be incorporated in the poem as it is, then he cannot write that poem in the scaled literary form. And that's why he has chosen very cleverly this free verse, because if he can write the poem in free verse, then only he can express all his feelings freely and without any obstruction, okay. And he can maintain what a conversational tone. So that's why he has chosen this free verse for this poem. And you go to the next one. The poem elicits a range of emotions from the reader, okay. From the reader, this poem elicited some of the emotions, that is, you know, shock, amusement and anger, right. And the next point here is the themes of racism and prejudice make the poem a powerful social commentary on the state of race relations. So even today in the Western countries, you can find this kind of racial discrimination. Even in America, there is a lot of racial discrimination, just as we find caste discrimination in our country, India, color discrimination or racial discrimination. So this is rampant all over the Western countries. Okay, and therefore this is going to be a powerful social commentary on the state of race relations, not just in Nigeria but globally. Globally you can find this kind of a problem, not only just in Nigeria or in America or in the Western countries, but all over the world you can find this kind of racial discrimination. racism, and it's there. Of course, our casteism is there, caste discrimination that can be found only in India. And nowadays, some high caste people coming to America are also maintaining here also in America caste discrimination here. Okay, especially from Telangana and Andhra, people coming here are maintaining very strict caste discrimination. Therefore, in some Seattle or somewhere, they made even a law against this caste discrimination and all that. The people who came from India to America have not simply come here; they have also carried with them their casteism, their other feelings, and everything to this country. And here they have established all these things here also. So that's why you can find caste feeling and casteism, caste discrimination even in the United States of America among the people of Telangana and Andhra and some southern states people and all that, right? And that's really a deplorable thing. Okay, and now let's move on to learn other things. The tone of the poem, which is polite and formal at the beginning, shifts gradually to satirical and mocking. So this point also I have already made it clear. Let's move on to learn other things. The poem's enduring relevance and emotional impact make it a profound piece of literature that challenges readers to reflect on their own. Okay, so this poem is quite relevant to these days, because nowadays also the people not only in the USA but also in the Western countries following this kind of racism, and they have prejudice against the colored people. Okay, so that's why the youngsters, the people of coming generations must think about this, and they must fight against that. Okay, they must try to eradicate that kind of racial discrimination from the minds of the people. Okay, and now let's move on to learn the poem. So far you have learnt about the poet as well as about the poem. Very clearly, some important points about the poem are given, some important points about the poet are given. Please go through those important points. They may be of great help and use to you for your examination. And now let us look at the poem. Let us learn that poem very quickly, because it is a bit lengthy poem. Okay, of course, though it is lengthy, it is a simple poem. You can easily understand, and because it is written in the form of a free verse and all that. Okay, and here you pay attention. This is that poem. These are the first few lines of the poem, and here the poet's picture is also given here. This is Oli Soyinka. Okay, this is Oli Soyinka, the telephone conversation. The price seemed reasonable, location indifferent. So here it is not following any metrical length and all that, very well, because it is written in free verse, no rhyme scheme, no what you call metrical pattern. So that's why the length of the line can be anything. Here it is long, here it is very long, here it is short and like that. So the length of the lines can be varying. So here that's the price seemed reasonable, location indifferent, full stop. The sentence has entered the second line, it has ended here, full stop is here. So already I have told you about this. This is a conversation between a black man and a white lady over the telephone. Over the telephone, this is a conversation. Okay, the conversation has begun between these two persons over the telephone. In those days, there used to be telephones. Nowadays, mobile phones are there. In those days, telephones are there. So here, that's why the title is the telephone conversation. Right, and here this narrator, let us not call him a black man again and again, let us call him only the narrator. This narrator wants to rent an apartment, he wants to live in an apartment, he is in search of an apartment. Okay, and therefore what happened, he has found some apartment somewhere. Okay, some apartment he has found, and here after inquiry he has come to know the price of this apartment. That means the rent, price means here the rent of this apartment seemed reasonable. It was somewhat reasonable. Reasonable means within his approach. Whenever we search for a house, what happens? We see the rent of that house. If the rent of that house is within our reach, we prefer that. Otherwise, we just put it aside, isn't it? Suppose you are searching for a house within 5,000. If you can get the house within 5,000 rent, it is well and good. Suppose if you are going to get it for 7,000, you think of it, because your income is very less. How can you pay 7,000 instead of 5,000? You are going to pay 7,000. You don't want to pay that much. Therefore, you say you put that house aside, and you start you keep searching for the house which is available for you within that stipulated income, stipulated rent, 5,000 rent, within 5,000 rent only. You fix that rental amount in your mind and search for that. Okay, so that is what we do in our country also. In the same way here, this narrator, after inquiry, he has come to know that the rent of this apartment is not too high, but it is reasonable. That means within his approach, he can pay that. It is payable, right? And location indifferent. So for this man, this location is not important. He was not concerned about the location. Whatever may be the location, he wants an apartment, he wants to live in that apartment. That is only the purpose. But here in our country now, whenever we search for a house, we see two things. The locality is important for us, the rent is also important for us. So these two aspects, we just keep in our mind while searching for a rented house. So the narrator finds that the rent of the apartment was reasonable, and he was not very much concerned about the location. That is there. The landlady swore she lived off premises. Another line. So the sentence has come and ended here. That means the landlady or the owner of the apartment lives elsewhere. That means she doesn't live on the premises. So generally, you also keep this point in your mind. If the owner of the house is living in the same house, you don't like that house, because every time the owner will be looking at you, how you are maintaining your house, what you are doing in the house, and all these things. He will be watchful, and that's why what happens, you don't like the owner of the house to be on the premises. You want him to be somewhere else, but not in the house where you want to live. So you don't like the owner to be on the premises. That is the point. So here also the landlady swore she lived off premises. Off premises means away from the premises. She is not on the premises. She doesn't live in that apartment. She lives elsewhere. Okay. And nothing remained but self-confession. So now what happened? Now, the narrator wanted to make himself clear to that landlady, because he wanted to tell the landlady all about himself. That means self-confession. Self-confession means he wanted to make everything about himself clear to that landlady. Madam, I hate a wasted journey. I am African. Because he does not want a wasted trip. Wasted journey means wasted trip. So why wasting the time and all that? Let me be frank with the landlady. If I tell her that I am an African, then whether she gives the house or not, okay, then and there itself it will be known to me. So that is what he has planned, and therefore he says, I am African. That means, he wants to be crystal clear with that landlady. He tells her that he was an African. He was a black man. Hello, madam? I am an African, madam, he said. Then from the other side, silence. Silence transmission of pressurized good breeding. That means, here there was a pause. When this narrator said that he was an African, from the side of the landlady, there was a total silence, an utter silence. She must belong to some high class, and she must have been a rich lady, and that's why she at once remained silent. Because higher social class people will be maintaining prejudice and racism and all that. So that's why what happened now, there is a pause, there is silence, total silence from the other part, voice when it came. And then what happened now, after a little while, that landlady answered the narrator, and in a condescending manner. How? Lipstick coated, long rolled, cigarette holder pipped. These phrases describe her social status. Okay, lipstick coated. Who will have that lipstick coated lips and all that? Only the rich people will have that. Only the wealthy people will have that. Long gold rolled cigarette holder people. Cigarette holders will also be there. Made of gold holders will be there. They put the cigarette in that and they go on smoking that. So here these two things indicates that this landlady belongs to a higher social class. She is a wealthy lady. She is a very rich lady. And therefore, she replied to him in a condescending manner. Condescending manner means showing superiority over that man. Because, the owners will always speak in a condescending manner with the tenants. Not only in the Western countries, even in India also. With the tenants, the owners will speak in a condescending manner with some superiority, exhibiting some superiority. So here this rich lady, what happened? Yes, spoke with him in a condescending manner, in an arrogant manner. How? What she said? How dark? What did she say? How dark? This is a very blunt question. This indicates that she is very arrogant and her racism is deep rooted and she is very much prejudiced, and that's so she said, okay, then you say you are a black man, you are an African, okay, but how dark are you? Africans are almost dark, they won't be white and all that. Okay, almost all the Africans are dark. So here she is, asking for the grade, light gray, light dark, or thick dark, or very thick dark. She is very particular about the color. From this you understand how much deep-rooted this racism in her. This racism is very much deep-rooted in her. And that's why it says, how dark? I had not misheard. The narrator has heard this word. How dark? And he pretended as if he had not heard it. Yes, that's why she says, are you light or very dark? Are you light dark or very dark or thick dark? That's button B, button A. That means if you are light dark, you press button B. If you are thick dark, you press button A. These button B, button A tell you those days, when the people used the manual telephones and all that. On the telephone, you have to press the buttons A, 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that you have to. Nowadays, you have got mobiles, that's a different matter. So, 15, 20 years ago, what happened? There used to be only telephones. On the telephone, there used to be some numbers. You have to press the numbers, okay, isn't it? So, she's just asking, don't tell me I am light dark or thick dark. Don't say like that. Simply say A or B. She is giving some options to that narrator. Stench. Oh, no. It is continuing. Now, stench. You go to the other part of the poem. On the previous slide, the last word, stench. Stench means what? Foul smell. Stench means foul smell. Right. Foul smell. Okay. Of rancid breath of public hide and speak. Okay. What is that? He was talking from the public phone to her. In those days, you don't have mobiles, you can keep this mobile in your purse and you can talk to anybody from anywhere, okay. But here, in those days, if you want to talk to anybody, you must go to some telephone booth, okay. There used to be some telephone booth, okay. Some telephone booth used to be there. You have to go to the telephone booth and standing in the telephone booth, you have to talk to the person. In this telephone booth, you can find some kind of foul smell of rancid breath of public hide and speak. So in the telephone booth, there's a small box will be there. So you have to stand in the box and you have to talk. Please remember those olden days, okay. And here in that box, what is happening? Some rancid, unpleasant smell of breath. Because one by one will come into that box and speak something and they go away. So here, that's why some rancid breath of foul smell. The foul smell of rancid breath can be found in that public booth, red booth, okay, hide and speak, red booth, red pillar box, red double tired omnibus squelching tar. So here, these things tell you the Britishness. In Britain, what you call, generally certain very important things are put in red color, okay, and here the telephone booth will be in red color only. post box will be in a red color. Even in today also in our country, the post box is in red color because that was introduced in our country by the Britishers when they ruled this country. So even today in our country, the pillar box means letter box is, you can find only red color. And earlier there used to be some red buses. Now the color of the buses has been changed in Hyderabad, in our country. But earlier, just 15-20 years ago, there used to be only red bus. Red color buses only you could find, because this red color, red pillar, red booth, these are the omnium. This is the British color. Red color is the British color that indicates their Britishness, that indicates their order, that indicates their dignity, and that's why for all important things, they gave red color only. So that is why. So here red booth, red pillar box, red double tired, omnibus squelching tar. So here omnibus, and here omnibus, red double tired omnibus. Okay, squelching tar. That means just now it has rained and it has ceased. Now the buses and vehicles are going. What kind of sound can you find when the tires are moving on the road? You can find some squelching tar sound. Squelching means emitting sucking sound you can find. Here only a description is given, but all these things are the symbols of Britishness and also their order. Okay, it was real shamed. And here the narrator was ashamed of that by her ill-mannered silence and prejudice. Okay, ill-mannered silence means silence and also prejudice. He feels ashamed of the white lady's silence and prejudice, and surrender, push dumbfoundment to beg simplification. And he tries his best to simplify the complexity of his identity. Okay, so therefore what happened? Considerate she was, wearing the emphasis, are you dark or very light? Revelation came. Again she has asked the narrator about the color of his skin. That means she is very particular about the color of his skin. Okay, that means this tells us how much deep rooted this racism in her, how much deep rooted this prejudice in her mind. So here what is considerate she was. See what somewhat considerate, somewhat kind, and she says wearing the emphasis, changing the emphasis, stress. What did she say? Are you dark or very light? She has changed the question. She has rephrased the question, and she says, are you dark? Okay, are you dark? And she is now asking for the clarity. Okay, and you mean like plain or milk chocolate? Immediately this narrator started replying to her, and he said, madam, do you mean to say whether I am like a plain chocolate or milk chocolate? Plain chocolate is really dark and all that. Milk chocolate is somewhat white. So here the narrator has taken the help of this chocolate. He is comparing the color of his skin with that chocolate. Her assent was clinical. Her assent was clinical means cold and impersonal. Okay, her agreement was cold and impersonal, crushing in its light impersonality. That means dehumanizing that black man, dehumanizing that African. Okay, and rapidly wavelength adjusted. I chose my West African sepia. So here rapidly means very quickly he has adjusted himself. That means he has set right himself, and now he told her that his color is West Africa sepia. West African sepia means what? This is Africa. Okay, let me give you. This is this is Africa. So this is the Eastern Africa. This is the Western Africa. So here you can find some Eritrea. Certain countries will be there. You can find all of them. So West African sepia. Sepia means brownish gray. Brownish gray color is called sepia. In your mobiles also you can find sepia color. So you can take the photo in that West African sepia also. It's a kind of color, brownish gray. So here the people will be in sepia color. Sepia. What is that? Sepia color. That means brownish gray. So here he says, ma'am, the color of my skin is like that of West African sepia, he said. And as an afterthought, down in my passport, silence for spectroscopic. Spectroscopic means she remained silent for a brief period. And that means she has taken a little pause. Let us see the meaning of the remaining poem. this is the third part of the poem, and here you see, okay, the last part of the poem, and here you see, flight of fancy till truthfulness changed her accent hard on the mouthpiece. So here, flight of fancy, that means when he said the color of his skin is like that of West African sepia, so she could not understand that. Therefore what happened now, she must be thinking about that West African sepia color and all that. That's why she has taken some time. Therefore she has remained silent for a little while. And here, flight of fancy means she started thinking about that West African sepia, right? Till truthfulness changed her accent hold hard on the mouthpiece. Yes, what is that? Conceding, don't know what that is. And immediately, as she could not understand what that means, okay, what that West African sepia meant, immediately what happened? She asked him for the clarification. She asked him for the detailed information. What is that? Yes, conceding, don't know what that is. What is that? What do you mean by West African sepia? What kind of color is that? You please let me know that. She has demanded an explanation. She has demanded a clarification from that narrator. Like brunette. Okay, then immediately our narrator said, I'm like brunette. Brunette means a woman having dark brown hair is called a brunette. So brunette is also an adjective. Brunette is an adjective, means dark brown color. Okay, dark brown color. So the color of my skin is brunette. Brunette means dark brown color, man. Like brunette. That is dark, isn't it? Immediately the landlady said, when the narrator said that the color of his skin is dark brown color, immediately that the white lady said, that is dark, isn't it? So if that is so, that is, that is very dark, isn't it? He said, not altogether. Then this narrator said, not altogether black, madam. It is somewhat dark, something he said. Facially, I am brunette. That means with regard to my face, I am dark brownish. But madam, you should see the rest of me. If you can see my rest of the body, you don't say that. What is that? Palm of my hand. You see the palm? This palm of the hand. Soles of my feet are peroxide blonde, means what? Whitish. Madam, my palms and my soles of the feet are whitish, and my face is what? As dark brownish, okay. But and friction caused foolishly, madam, by sitting down has turned my bottom raven black. He also started, because he was fed up with her questions, and he was also fed up with her racial feeling, strong racial feeling, and that's why he wanted to give her, he wanted to teach her a lesson, and he wanted to tell her that questions are just absurd. And therefore what did he do? He started describing the color of the parts of the body, and he said, friction caused foolishly, madam, by sitting down has turned my bottom. He is talking about his bottom, his buttocks. He says that have become very black because of sitting and sitting and sitting. Because of friction, they have become black. So my face is dark brownish, okay. My palms and soles of the feet are whitish, and my bottom is very black, okay. He has said raven black means thick black. One moment, madam. And immediately what happened, that landlady, sensing her receiver rearing on the thunderclap about my ears. So what happened? While the narrator was saying, one moment, that madam, the other side, put that phone on the cradle. So sensing a receiver rearing on the thunderclap. So she has put that receiver back on the cradle of the phone. One moment, madam. Sensing her receiver rearing on the thunderclap about my ears. Madam, I pleaded, wouldn't you rather see for yourself? The narrator was requesting her, madam, wait on please. And but she did not listen to him. She put that telephone on the cradle, and the sound the narrator could hear, and he was saying, madam, I request you, please see me for yourself and then decide. Instead of this oral description, you had better see me in person and then decide. Okay, anyway, this is the meaning of this poem, and now let's move on to learn about the literary devices the poet has employed in this poem. Literary devices employed in the poem. Okay, here Oli Soyinka employs various literary devices in the telephone conversation to enhance the impact of the poem and convey its themes effectively. You know very well, to enhance the impact of the poem, the beauty of the poem, the charm of the poem, and also convey its themes effectively. What are the themes of this poem? Racism and prejudice are the themes of this poem. You know that very well. And to enhance all these things, this poet has employed various literary devices, right? And the first one here is, I'm going to give you the key literary devices. The first one is irony. Irony means Vengyamu, something like that. The poem is rich with irony, particularly situational irony. Okay. And here the irony lies in the landlady's concern with the color of the narrator's skin rather than his qualifications as a tenant. So there is an irony. So the landlady is very much particular about the color of the skin of the tenant, but not his qualifications, his goodness, his good behavior and all that. She is not very particular about his good qualities, goodness, good behavior. She is not talking about these things. She is just talking about the color of his skin. Generally, in our India, what happens, the owners will be asking the tenants for their background. What job he is doing, first thing. Whether he is a regular drinker or a non-veg eater or something like that, certain questions. Certain questions, they pose. Only they want to check whether they are going to be very good tenants for them or some bad tenants. Because, sometimes, bad tenants will be there. They give a lot of trouble to the owners. Okay. So such cases are also there, we can come across in our everyday life. So here, instead of seeing his good nature, good qualities, good qualifications, this landlady wants to see only the color of his skin. That is really very ironic, right? And this thing you can understand in this one. You go to the other literary devices. Satire is there. Satire means what? Again, irony. Okay, satire. So Soyinka uses satire to criticize and ridicule the absurdity of racial prejudice. So to criticize the absurdity of racial prejudice and ridicule the racial prejudice only, this satire is used in this poem. Satire means Vengyam again. Here you pay attention, the exaggerated politeness of the narrator and the ridiculous nature of the landlady. You can find two persons here. The black man with what? Politeness. The landlady with arrogant nature. Expose the irrationality and stupidity of racism. In this poem, the rationality and stupidity of racism have been exposed. Okay. So, landlady's questions expose. Okay. Here, what is that? Ridiculous nature of landlady's questions expose what? Irrationality. So, her questions expose what? Irrationality of racism and stupidity of racism. Right. And here you pay attention. Third one, repetition is there. So, what is the repetition? The repetition of the landlady's question is repeated here. Say, first of all, how dark and are you light or very dark? That's the question repeated. Emphasizes her obsession with skin color. She is very particular about the skin color and the the perseverance of racial prejudice. She is very particular about the racial prejudice. Okay, right. You go to other literary devices. Imagery is there. Imagery means visualization. All of you know very well. The poem is filled with vivid imagery, such as what kind of imagery? Lipstick coated. Okay, she has coated lipstick to her lips, means she must be a rich lady, wealthy lady. Okay, long gold rolled cigarette holder people. So when you read this line, you immediately understand the picture of a lady with a big hat on her head and lipstick coated lips and smoking some long cigar and all that. So that kind of picture will flash on your mind. Okay, that's called visualization or imagery. A red booth, immediately you remember just 20 years back there used to be red telephone booths. Even today also you can find post offices in red color. Okay, red booth, red pillar box. Pillar box means post box. Red double tired omnibus. Okay, squelching tone. Red double tired omnibus. Okay, red buses used to be there just 20-25 years ago. Now the colors of the buses have been changed, but earlier there used to be only the red bus, because the red bus will appear to the senses very clearly. Okay, wherever it may be. So even from a long distance, you can find that the bus is coming. Okay, because red color is very exciting, very vibrant, and it can immediately touch your senses. So that's the reason why this red color is used. And moreover, it is a favorite color of the Britishers, and it indicates the Britishness and order. Right. These images create a detailed picture of the setting and the characters, enhancing the reader's engagement with the poem. Right. You go to other literary devices. Dialogue is there. This whole poem itself is a kind of dialogue. Okay. And here you pay attention. The poem is primarily a dialogue between the narrator and the landlady. So the narrator and the landlady, it's a dialogue. Okay, right. And here this format makes the conversation immediate and personal. Okay, if the poem is given in the form of a dialogue, then this makes the conversation immediate and personal, and drawing the reader into the interaction, and the reader will also be taken into interaction and making the landlady's racism and more impactful. And if the poem is written in the form of a dialogue, the readers can understand the deep-rooted racial feelings of that landlady very clearly. Okay, and for that purpose, this poet has chosen this free verse, and he has written this poem in the form of a dialogue. Contrast and juxtaposition. Showing a contrast the narrator's polite and composed manner with the landlady's blunt and offensive questions. You know very well, see already just now I have told you about the natures of these two persons. The narrator, the black man's nature is very polite and he is a good-mannered person, whereas this landlady is very arrogant and she is very much prejudiced and all that, maintaining racial feelings, racial discrimination and all that. So these two personalities, these two persons are put side by side and they are juxtaposed. Okay, and here this juxtaposition highlights the difference in their attitudes and emphasizes the landlady's insensitivity. So these attitudes are put side by side, and you can easily understand who is humble and who is proud and all that. All these things you can understand from this. Okay, you go to other literary devices. Seventh one, sarcasm. Sarcasm means, again, this is a kind of irony. Okay, it's called sarcasm means vetakara, the tone of mocking. Vengyam vere vetakaram. This is vetakaram, sarcasm. Narrator's responses are laced with sarcasm. And in this poem, you find that the narrator's answers are all sarcastic. You mean like a plain or milk chocolate? Do you mean to say, madam, I am like a plain chocolate or milk chocolate? Plain chocolate means dark colored chocolate, black colored chocolate, and milk colored means white, light white colored chocolate. So here, now he has given this reply to this lady in a sarcastic manner, in a sarcastic way. Facially, I am brunette. Madam, facially, I am dark brownish. Okay, but madam, you should see, he started giving the colors of his other organs of the body. And he says, the rest of me, palm of my hand, soles of my feet are a peroxide blonde. Peroxide blonde. Okay. So, madam, my palms and soles of feet are whitish. Okay, peroxide blonde means whitish. So, like that. This sarcasm underscores the ridiculousness of the landlady's focus on the skin color. Since this landlady is focusing on the skin color, he is ridiculing her. These answers, these replies ridicule, okay, mock at this landlady, and because she is focusing only on skin color and serves to mock her ignorance. She is very ignorant, and it's like that. Right, you move on to other literary devices. Metaphor is there. The poem uses metaphors to convey deeper meanings. Silenced transmission of pressurized good breeding. You know very well, when the narrator told her that he was an African, he was a black man, what happened? Immediately the white lady maintained silence. She did not reply. She remained silent, and indicating that she has been shocked and stunned and with his reply, because she must not have expected that the tenant would be a black man and an African, and that's why she maintained a silence. What kind of silence? Silence maintained generally by the high class people who maintain prejudice and racism. This metaphor suggests the landlady's initial hesitation to reveal her prejudice. Okay. So first of all, this landlady, though she is prejudiced against the blacks, though she has deep-rooted racial feelings and all that, she did not reveal those feelings outright. She did not exhibit them. At the beginning, she remained silent, without exhibiting her prejudice and racism. So that is there. And here you pay attention, and on spectroscopic flight of fancy. When he said, West African sepia, she could not understand the meaning of that. And immediately she started imagining Okay, she started thinking about the meaning of that West African sepia. So that's when flight of fancy, spectroscopic flight of fancy means, she started thinking about it very deeply. And here, this refers to the landlady's attempt to categorize the narrator's skin color scientifically. Okay, on listening to the skin color of the narrator, she wants to categorize him, whether he is a light dark man or a medium dark man or a thick dark man or a very dark man, something like. She wants to categorize him in scientifically. In this, you find the metaphors here. The tone of the poem, which is polite and formal at the beginning, shifts gradually to satirical and mocking. So earlier it was very polite and formal, and later on it has changed to satirical and mocking. Okay, and the shift reflects the narrator's changing emotions as he navigates the conversation, as he continues the conversation, moving from initial politeness to more biting critique of the landlady's racism. Initially he was very polite, and gradually he also started becoming very harsh with that landlady. So he started criticizing the landlady's racism and all that. You go to other literary devices. Symbolism is there. What is symbolism? Here you pay attention. The red booth, red pillar box are symbols of Britishness and order. I have been telling you right from the beginning, they are the symbols of Britishness and order, okay, which contrast with the irrational and disorderly nature of racism. Though they are the people of order, order means good nature and good behavior and all that, so they are filled with the irrational and disorderly nature of racism. They are filled with the irrational and disorderly nature of racism. This is really very bad about the Britishers. Okay, and the colors mentioned, red, dark, light, blonde, symbolize racial differences and societal perceptions of race. Okay, and these colors are also very important. Red. Red color. How is he? She's red. She's dark. She's light. She's blonde. Blonde means white, whitish. So something like that. These are all the skin colors of the people. Okay, racial difference. Allusion is there. Allusion means, okay, giving some reference. See here, there are subtle allusions to colonial and post-colonial tensions. Okay, in this you can find the colonial and post-colonial references also. The interaction reflects broader issues of race relations and power dynamics between the colonizer and the colonizer. So here, this Nigeria, most of the African countries were ruled by the Britishers. They were made the colonial states. Even India was also made the colonial state. That means they ruled this country with superiority, and afterwards they left the country. So that is called colonized countries. This Nigeria was also a colonized country that was under the rule of the Britishers for some time. Right. So that's why this kind of superiority, dominating feeling the Britishers have on these Nigerians. Okay, right. Humor is also there. In this poem, you can find a lot of humor. See, the poet employs humor, okay, particularly in the narrator's witty and exaggerated responses. Witty and exaggerated responses. And here, the humor not only entertains but also highlights the absurdity of the situation. So, this humor not only entertains but also highlights the absurdity of the situation and criticizes the landlady's prejudice. And through these literary devices, Oli Soyinka has made this poem a powerful and memorable one, and he has also exposed the racism and prejudice of the white people. Okay, and now let's move on to do the exercise given on this poem. Okay, 20 bits are given, you solve them on your own, and at the end of the exercise you can find the answers. Right, I can only read the questions and options. You are only to answer the questions. Right. Okay, multiple choice questions on the telephone conversation. Right, what is the main theme of the telephone conversation? So here, see, love, racism, war, friendship. Okay, you go to the next one. What prompts the narrator to warn the landlady about his race? Okay, here, fear of rejection, excitement, curiosity, indifference. Right, okay, we go to other questions. What is the narrator's initial description of his race? Okay, European, African, Asian, American. Right. How does the landlady first respond to the narrator's confession of being African? What was her response? With enthusiasm, with silence, with laughter, with anger. Right. You go to other questions. What question does the landlady ask that reveals her prejudice? Where are you from? How dark are you? Are you educated? Do you have a job? You know that very well. And how does the narrator sarcastically describe his skin color? Light chocolate, wet African sepia, dark caramel, sun tanned. You know the answer. You choose the right one. And the seventh one is here. What literary device is prominent in the narrator's response to the landlady's question about his color? Simile, metaphor, irony, alliteration. Okay. Eighth one. What imagery does the narrator use to describe the landlady's voice? Sweet and melodic, harsh and grating, lipstick coated, long gold rolled, soft and gentle. What kind of voice was of the landlady? You can choose the right one. You go to other questions. What does the narrator suggest has caused his palms and soles to be a different color? Working hard, sun exposure, friction from sitting, using bleach. Okay. What does the repeated imagery of red in the poem symbolize? Anger, Britishness and order, love, danger, etc. Now you go to other questions. How does the landlady ultimately react to the narrator's explanations about his skin color? With acceptance, with confusion, with laughter, with understanding. 12th question. What does the narrator offer to the landlady at the end of the poem? His photograph, his address, a face-to-face meeting, his passport. You know the answer? Okay. You can tick the right one. Now let's move on to other questions. What tone does the narrator maintain throughout the conversation? Angry, sarcastic, desperate, joyful. 14th one. What is the primary literary form of the telephone conversation? Sonnet, free verse, haiku, limerick. Okay. Which of the following best describes the landlady's question? Are you light or very dark? Polite inquiry, racial microaggression, casual conversation, job interview question. Is it a job interview question? Right. What does the narrator use to highlight the absurdity of the landlady's question about his skin color? Humor, anger, tears, silence. Okay. You go to other questions. What does the narrator say his face is compared to? Dark chocolate, milk chocolate, brunette, light sepia. What effect does the poem's conversational structure have on it? It makes the poem less engaging. It creates a sense of immediacy and realism. It confuses the reader. It adds to the humor. Last set of questions. Which literary device is used in the line pressurized good breeding? Simile, metaphor, personification, hyperbole. Last one. What does the poem suggest about the narrator's view on racial discrimination? He accepts it as normal. He is deeply hurt by it. He finds it absurd and mocks it. He is indifferent to it. Okay, you know all these answers. Please, if you don't know the answers, you please listen to the poem once again. And even then, if you have any problem, please text me that problem on my WhatsApp number or in the comment section. Okay. And now let's move on to see the answers to these 20 questions. Okay. Answers 1 to 10 answers are given here. And then you go to the next one. 11 to 20 answers are given on this slide. Okay, and with this this video comes to an end, and thank you so much for watching this video. Dear DSC candidates, thank you so much for watching this video, and if you find it any more difficult in understanding this poem, please text me your problem on my WhatsApp number, or you can also mention it in the comment section. Okay, with another beautiful video, I shall be back to you. Until then, bye, see you all of you. Right.